today? Well, Easter may be over and gone, but the Easter ham may still be hanging around at your house. So today I want to share a recipe that will help you use up that leftover Easter ham. The recipe I'm going to be sharing today is egg and cheese breakfast casserole. But I'm using the egg and cheese descriptor a little loosely because the recipe I'm going to share today is a little flexible. So I'm going to tell you, I'll post the link below where you can print your own recipe, and that recipe is for a full 8.5 by 11 casserole. If you want to make the whole thing and then bake it and freeze it and have it for later, if you want to bake it and serve it, that's what that will be for. And that recipe I'll just briefly give now, and then as I go through how I'm going to prepare it today, you'll see how flexible it is for smaller portions or different ingredients. So if I'm making this in a big 8.5 by 11, I would use 3 cups of potatoes, 2 cups of ham, about 3/4 of a cup of onion, 2 cups of shredded cheddar, and about a dozen eggs, and then some milk. Just throw some milk in to kind of make the eggs a little fluffy. So, but let me go ahead and like I said, the recipe that you'll see that you can download for your own is for that full casserole. And if you want to make that whole amount, you can still freeze it in smaller containers. This is what I'm going to make mine in today. These came from Dayspring. I love these little containers. They're a perfect size for empty nesters because if you're like me, Kevin and I are empty nesters now. Our kids are grown and gone. We have adult children. If I make a 9 by 11 casserole, it's going to hang around forever and probably get thrown out. It'll go bad or we'll get sick of it before it's all gone. So I'm finding myself making things in smaller dishes and freezing the other half. I'm going to put this in here because I want to make it and take it and give it away. Sometimes if a friend has had surgery or there's been a death in the family, there's been a baby, whatever, I like taking a quiche or something for breakfast. The thing about a quiche type recipe is that if you serve it with a salad or it kind of works for dinner, you can serve it with fruit and it works for breakfast. So sometimes at our house, especially when we were raising the kids on Sunday night, I would sort of make scrambled eggs, sometimes waffles, but a lot of times Sunday night was breakfast for dinner night at our house. But these little containers are great. They have a little top that lets you write in. It says, "Our God, we give you thanks." And then I've just written on here, egg, cheese, and ham breakfast casserole. I'm going to show you some variations on this recipe to see how very flexible it can be. So I've already diced up the potatoes and I had them in the fridge and they're starting to look a little brown, but they'll be just fine. Now sometimes when I make this, if I want the potatoes to have that little bit of sort of crunch, just a little bit browned, I will go ahead and do these on the stove with a little olive oil and maybe even throw my onions in there, but you don't have to do that. Today I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna take it easy. I'm going to make it easy on myself. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the potatoes that I have already diced up. And I'm just going to cover the bottom of this container with those. I've also sprayed both of these already with the pan cooking spray. It's actually the Aldi version of that, but I don't want to have to scrub or soak my container, so I'm going to make sure that everything comes out nicely. So let me just go ahead and dump these in here. So these are white potatoes. Now, I love to roast white potatoes with some sweet potatoes, and I love to use sweet potatoes with eggs. Sometimes when I'm just eating healthy, I will dice up some sweet potatoes with onions for breakfast, kind of saute them with just a little olive oil, and then throw in veggies and my eggs and kind of make an egg scramble with those. I've done this recipe with some sweet potatoes as well, and I love that. I do not have sweet potatoes on hand right now, so I'm doing all white potatoes. But just know, sweet potatoes, that's another part of the flexibility. My recipe that you print will say white potatoes, but you can easily use sweet potatoes as well. So now, this is my ham already diced up. I'm going to sprinkle the ham right on top and just kind of cover it. Again, very flexible, very forgiving, very easy. On my other casserole, and here is where the flexibility comes in, I had a little bit of bacon already prepared. So I just sort of diced that up, and I'm gonna make one casserole with just some bacon instead of some ham. So now you're getting the idea. You can change out to different breakfast meats. You can do Canadian bacon. You can do sausage. I did one of these while the kids were home over Christmas, and I did it with sausage. So this is a very flexible, again, that's the key word I keep talking about with this recipe, but this one I'm going to do some with bacon, and then next I'm going to layer on the onion. So I've got some white onion already diced up here for my traditional ham recipe. And again, I tried to measure so I could create a recipe, but for the most part, I just sort of eyeball it a little bit, or just sort of use whatever's left over. I'm going to use some green onion in the one that I'm doing here because I want it to have a little color. I've got some diced up peppers that I'm going to do in my ham and cheese, but here in the bacon, I'm going to do bacon and Swiss and mushroom. So it's going to be all kind of bland color. So I thought I'd like to have a little color in there. So I had just a couple of green onions left, and I diced those up. So I'm going to throw those on this one. I hope I'm not confusing you, making two different recipes at once, but I did want to model how easy and flexible this is. So I've got the green onions. They both have onion. I'm going to go ahead. Now these peppers, I've got yellow and orange and green and red pepper. These were in my freezer, so I thawed them. I don't like to let anything go to waste, and so when I saw I wasn't going to be using these and I was going to be going out of town, I diced them up, threw them in the freezer, so they've thawed. But since they're going into a recipe, you can't use these on a salad, of course, but they're great to go into a casserole. So I'm just going to, again, sprinkle some of these on so we get some vegetables into our casserole. You can leave the vegetables off if your crew doesn't like those, no problem. Now, I've got just had a few mushrooms left, and so I've diced these up, and I'm going to put them on top of my bacon casserole. So I've got bacon and green onion for color, and now some mushrooms. Now my hubby will not touch a mushroom. He always says if God wanted us to eat mushrooms, he wouldn't have made so many of them poisonous. So he doesn't like them. He doesn't like the taste. He doesn't like the texture. I love mushrooms. So if we order a pizza, it's going to have mushrooms, half without. So this casserole I will have all to myself, and I will have to make another one for my hubby to share. Okay, next comes our cheese. So I've got cheddar cheese here, and if I were doing the whole 8.5 by 11, I would use between 2 and 3 cups of cheese. But since I'm just doing this little bitty, I'm just going to sort of sprinkle that on and see how it looks. I just want to cover everything pretty well. If your family likes cheese, you can put more on. If you're trying to cut down on the fat or the cholesterol, you could leave a little off, but I'm going to layer that on pretty well there. Okay, then on my one with bacon, I'm going to use Swiss, and what I have on hand is just the sliced Swiss, so we're just going to put the sliced Swiss on there. When I make a quiche, I don't bother to shred it, I just do it that way. And I'm going to split one of these up to fill in the little bit that's missing here, and do that way. So look how quick and easy this is, using everything up. So I've got everything on there. Now I've already cracked and whipped up a dozen eggs in my measuring bowl. So my milk has gone bad, so I don't have milk and I'm out of whipping cream. So I did have a can of evaporated milk. If I were doing this just from home and I was having company, I wanted to make it really creamy, I would use whipping cream, or I would use 2% milk, or whatever I have, 1% or skim. Here's what I have on hand, so here's what I'm using. I'm just going to pour a little bit of that in there, and I'll try to estimate how much that was for the purposes of the recipe, but the milk will just make it a little more fluffy. Then you can put in salt and pepper. If I had fresh garlic, I would put that in, but I've started using this tender seasoning from Sam's often, and it is a blend of salt and pepper and garlic. And so again, you can just do that to taste, to your preference. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of that in here, give it a nice heavy hand, and then mix that around. And then the only thing left to do now is just to pour this over the top. I spilled some cheese, I spilled some potatoes, we'll just throw that back on there. So I'm just going to pour it over, until I get the cheese completely covered. And so this is so shallow that it's going to fill up quickly and not need as much as I thought it might. So just get the cheese, and of course as it bakes it will go ahead and incorporate all that cheese and bubble up there. I'm going to go ahead and get the other one over and pour my egg over top of this as well. So we've got the meat, we got the vegetables, now we've got the cheese. I've got the oven preheating here to 350, and I'll just kind of keep an eye. I think I baked it for about 30 to 40 minutes, but with the smaller container, I'm thinking it might just bake a little less. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and you can do the same if you make it at your house, depending upon the size of the container. I love these little Pyrex dishes. They came in a set. I have different sizes of these. Some bigger, some smaller, and they even come in the round size. So if I have more ham left, and so I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just make up several of these and put them, go ahead and bake them, cool them. The nice thing about the Pyrex dishes is they come with these lids already, so I can, after they're cool, just put these on them. They're freezer tight, ready to go in the freezer, and then all I need to do is thaw and warm. It's a great way to have a quick breakfast, have it done ahead of time, and what a great way to use up your leftover ham after Christmas when you're just tired of ham. You can only eat so much of even a good thing. So all your sides have been eaten up maybe, and there's still that delicious spiral ham left. So maybe this would be a great way to use up that leftover ham. Get creative. Add in different vegetables, change out your breakfast meats, change out the cheeses, use whatever you got. But I think you and your family will enjoy egg and cheese breakfast casserole with ham just as much as we do. I'm going to go ahead. You know what? I didn't put ham, egg, and cheese on my list, on my sign. I should have done that. I just put egg and cheese. But this one is ham, this one is bacon, and you can change it out any way you want. Flexibility is the name of the game with this recipe. Okay, I'm going to stop the camera. I'm going to go ahead and get this into bake, and then I'll come back in a little while and let you see the finished product, and also let you know how long it took for this size to be ready and baked in the oven. Hang on, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. The egg casseroles are completed. They're out of the oven. Took a little longer than I thought. My oven is a convection. I set it for 350, which meant it adjusted to 325. Took about 40 minutes for this little small container to get completely baked. What I usually do is I take my pot holders and I kind of give it a little jiggle to see if it's still kind of jiggling around on top, and if it looks like it's set, then I count it done. So again, today we've been making my ham, egg, and cheese breakfast casserole. However, we learned how flexible it can be. You can change out the breakfast meats. You can make it bacon. You can make it sausage. You can make it Canadian bacon. You can change out the cheeses. And so I just want to show you what the finished product looks like. So here is the completed version of the ham and cheddar casserole, the egg casserole. So I'm going to go and let this cool, cover it with some foil, put it in the freezer, and we'll be good to go. And then I also, you remember, did one with bacon and Swiss, and here's what it looks like. So they both turned out great. I'm sure they're going to taste delicious. I have made this recipe before, and we absolutely enjoy it. I just usually throw it together. Today I had the challenge of trying to give some measurements so you could make it at home, but hopefully by watching the video, you figured out how easy it is, how you can use up your leftovers, especially this month, use up that leftover Easter ham. So thanks again for stopping by. If you enjoyed today's video, would you do us the honor of giving it a thumbs up, leaving us a comment, and consider sharing it with a friend. For Cross of My Heart Ministry, I'm Laura McFarland. Have a blessed week.